Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Gates. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Beyond the Gates, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. This week, Samantha resumed her path into womanhood but sought female direction. Doug was mended by the fixer, and Kat may have a hidden reason for not grooving on Tomás. Elsewhere in DC, Derek and Ashley appeared to skirt the underlying motivations for their forthcoming marriage. Dani and Andre preferred to keep things in Vegas, and Ted got himself in a lot of trouble with one tie. Let's fill up those two scoops and find out what happened both within and outside Fairmont Crest's gates. Mama said, knock you out. Nicole should put down her air freshener and take a well-padded seat. She pushed for Smitty to forgive Martin, but our intrepid reporter quickly turned the tables. Because wasn't it hypocritical of Ms. Nick to preach absolution when she wasn't giving Ted any? I'm glad Smitty pointed that out. Martin later told Smitty that his coldness was painful. Oh, poor baby. Then you shouldn't have tripped. Smitty insisted that he needed time, but he was well aware that Martin was likely to push until he had his way. What do you think? Don't forget, Smitty, that your man warned you that you couldn't take another job and actively sought to keep you from getting one. It hurts my ass. I can't be with this guy. Martin then became a parent confessor when Samantha approached him, of all people, to tell him that she had almost lost her virginity to Nathan. Wait, what? At the very least, the amorous nameless boy now has a name, if not a few, which is a significant development that occurred off-screen. Gates is starting to do this too frequently. Samantha, last we heard, intended to continue where she and Nathan had left off. Kissing is what I mean. So, when did it turn into sex? I'm not sure, but Samantha told Martin and us that she was almost a lady, but there weren't any female role models nearby to help her manage these feminine issues. What about Nicole and Kat? Martin wondered. By extension, there would be Anita, Dani, and Naomi. They were excellent, Samantha added, but they were constantly dealing with shiz and wouldn't cut it. Samantha wanted to unload on June. Tyrell heard this and used any number of chess moves to halt his sister. June had left the two of them freezing and hungry while out drugging, and there was no way of knowing if she still had a needle in her arm. Or whatever she used. I have to say that Tyrell was correct. However, he did overstep, and Smitty called him out on it. After that, the teenagers stomped upstairs, and Martin restrained Smitty from following. According to Martin, Samantha and Tyrell had to solve their own problem. Quite astute. But isn't that exactly what Smitty advised Martin when Tyrell was coping with the embarrassment of his underwear photo making its way around his school, only for Martin to rush straight to the principal after hearing that counsel from his husband? If I didn't know better, I'd assume Martin was working the angles. If he was, Smitty let himself be swayed because he enjoyed Martin's involvement with the kids. It reminded him of the man he had fallen in love with. Not going to let this go. Smitty said Martin was quite interested at first, but then he became busy with Congress, etc. yada yada. Martin loses even more points. No, I don't think his deception about Kenneth should haunt him indefinitely, but I also don't think he deserves to see Smitty again. Stay strong, Smits. While Samantha was working things out with Tyrell, their biological mother, June, was prepared to serve at Orphe Jeans, where she had taken a waitressing position. The now clean, now housed recoverer happily informed Naomi and Jacob that this was her first actual job. Perhaps that's why she served the Hawthorns the wrong food and made gourmet decisions for clients rather than allowing them to order for themselves. Taking instructions was not part of her training. Eric, the manager, just threw her out on the floor without following her for a few minutes. He presumably saw enough to approach Naomi with his assessment of June, and Naomi took it upon herself to give June the pink slip. I was sure the narrative would be about June running back out and using drugs again, or being persuaded by them. But June was saved when the client she delivered an omelet to, despite the fact that the woman clearly wanted something else, stood up for her. The dinner was meant to be about the heart. June was given a second chance and realized that she needed to write down orders. Had you never gone to a restaurant before? But she had been a mother, if only for a short time, and she was astounded to see her children arrive on time. Miss June had the insight to inform Samantha that she couldn't continue talking because she was at work. Sam noticed this and asked if they could sit down and speak about feminine matters. June was so ready, and it was a lovely moment. I'm rooting for June here, but lady, you watched as the world turns. You know how AL's diner operated. Anita felt she had deceived the now reclusive Chelsea into coming over by offering to help her choose for decorating color ideas. However, Chels revealed as soon as she entered the Dupree house that she had seen through the lie, making it astonishing that she had even shown up. Maybe she was already doing better, because she had her hair done up really fiercely. When Graham attempted to persuade Chelsea to delay the purse line launch, which Allison had already preempted, Kat understood Chelsea's hesitation and her journey on the struggle bus.
Why?
Because Kat had messed up with Tomás. For real? Kat chose this moment to make things about her. We know Brat Kat is incredibly self-centered, which makes her persona endearing, but when it comes to her cousin, she usually gets all the emotions. La Dupree learned that Kat had chastised Tomás for being an Eva apologist and sensibly stated that the one who made the error was the one who had to fix it. Chelsea provided a different perspective. Perhaps the right guy would believe Kat's instincts. Tell it, girl. But because Tomás was not reacting to Kat's shouts, she bounced and went to Orphe jeans, while Anita continued to gently nudge Chelsea. Chelsea was not interested in holding a large public Chelsea Cat event with the press in attendance. Not only would they certainly question her about the kidnapping, but they would most likely allow Allison a jailhouse interview. This is what happens in today's world. Anita had the perfect solution. Chelsea and Kat could have an online launch. Chelsea acted as if this was a unique idea. Excuse me, but isn't she the girl who, prior to becoming Allison's shackled bride, spent her life online? Including live broadcasting her father's wedding, which resulted in Dani's shoot-'em-up antics going viral. Anita boasted that her proposal was popular, which it is, but that should have been the first thing Chelsea thought of. The girl is definitely off her game. This should have occurred to Kat as well, but I think she was too preoccupied with feeling horrible over her last outburst against Tomás. It's no surprise that he questioned the timing of their relationship when Kat came, seeking to add another olive branch to his collection. Being labeled a mean girl had just upset her, and she vowed she could be better. As if we hadn't heard that before. Tomás wanted their romance to work, so he accepted Kat's apologies and planned the most romantic of dates, blindfolding her and bringing her to a rose-strewn hotel suite complete with champagne and a lavish supper. Kat was all for it until she discovered that the hotel room also included a bed. Perhaps her distraction was why the Chelsea Cat video she showed Tomás advertised the premiere as taking place Tuesday, September 29th. September 29th is a Monday. After dinner, Kat decided she wanted to dance, and after a few sways, she and Tomás sat on the bed and began to undress. The next thing we know, Kat was disappointed, and Tomás wanted to figure out what was wrong that had brought their lovemaking to an abrupt halt. So sorry I ruined your fun. Kat spat instead, refusing to communicate on the subject, except to remark that maybe it was Tomás who sucked in bed, and not in a nice way. So, that night was finished. Clearly, this is a recurring issue for these two. I'm no Dr. Ruth, but here's my take. Tomás is a fantastic lover, but Kat doesn't want him touching her because he also has feelings for Eva. Does this make sense? Kat's seen them almost kissing, and how many times has she caught them holding hands? Would you want to sex someone if you didn't have their entire attention? Therapy session has over. 5 cents, please. You make me want. Derek and Ashley are another pair that could benefit from therapy. I'm not sure whether you're as done with these two as I am, but we need to talk about them. Even though she had just ruminated hours before that she and Andre might have been a couple if their misunderstanding regarding Dani hadn't crippled Derek, Ashley was ready to put a ring on it with Derek. I'm sure Derek was extremely sedated, but he did have some moments of insight. He questioned why Ashley would want to marry a paraplegic, and he had to consider the possibility that Ashley was merely enamored with the prospect of nursing him. That works for me because Ashley's sudden desire for Derek does not make sense otherwise. Derek could hardly wait to be Mr. Ashley Morgan. Despite telling it how it is, Shanice questioned the 180 when she heard the news. My girl didn't even come to play. She knew Derek was regaining sensation in his legs and proceeded to demonstrate it. While aggravating Derek by telling him the truth about Andre's presence, Shanice deftly took out a large cotton swab and broke the stick in half, allowing her to abruptly poke Derek in the leg with it. He felt it. Snagged. Derek told Shanice that he hadn't told Ashley about the development because he didn't want to raise her expectations. Which I bought, until Shanice pointed me that Derek was simply frightened Ashley would not want to marry him if he recovered. Break out some truth, girl. Derek was so exposed that he complained that Shanice informing Ashley about his progress would be a breach of HIPAA. Yes, he does. Shanice said that it was fine for Derek to feel fearful, but not to be a jerk. Too late. Derek also gave away his game when Ashley brought Andre in and became overly protective about the engagement. I'll keep repeating it. These two should break up and go their separate ways. Alternatively, get married and leave DC. Together. Andre was devastated because he thought Ashley was his forever ever after. After 2 bad dates? Even #DrunkDani knew Andre was lying about that. What have you been drinking on? Speaking of whom, let's take a step back first. I recently told you that Andre was devastated by the loss of the girl with whom he had no relationship. Then there's Bill and Dani, who had a romance and married for 30 years. The exes reminisced over photos of Chelsea, and Dani recalled how Chelsea wanted a bat mitzvah so much, despite the fact that her family is not Jewish, that she was thrown a not mitzvah. Dani thought having a repeat would cheer Chelsea up, and Bill embraced the idea. Not so with Haley, who observed her husband huddled with Dani and blew up her phone line phoning Tomás, because, they needed to work on Bill's surprise party. And here it came up again. Haley knew nothing about Bill's life before Dupree, other than that he was a bright boy with a tough father. I'm telling you, the stage is being prepared for the arrival of Bill's father. I hope it is soon. Anyway, Tomás didn't think Bill would like a tribute movie featuring his past. Haley heard Bill approaching and began touching Tomás, cooing that she'd never seen that side of him before. Yes, honey, you attempted it, but Bill knew you were up to no good. After he privately confronted her about it, Haley stated that at least Bill now understood what it was like to have his person chummy with a rival, and advised her guy to go remind Dani that she was the only woman in his life. So Bill did, and if anyone has ever had their parade rained on, Dani's quills erupted at the mention of Haley's name, and things only got worse from there when Dani said that they couldn't host Chelsea's party because of Haley. I didn't get that outcome from what Haley was trying to say, but okay. Bill looked whipped as Dani grumbled, hoping Haley's influence wouldn't lead him back to disregarding their girls. Ouch. True, but hurts. The country club must have run out of alcohol at Andre's rate, and Dani matched him at the bar. Dani named cocktails and wanted Andre to be her player tutor, but when Andre only wanted to booze it up, Dani remembered how he had gotten in her face months ago when she had been dripping in vodka. Double standard is recognized. But it makes me wonder if Dani is actually an alcoholic after all. That was the show's original direction, but they changed it. Dani was back on track at Fairmont Crest. What happened to her return to modeling to give her and Pamela's agency the boost it needed? Dani and Andre were so excited that the bartender cut them off, and they decided to travel to the airport for a spontaneous trip that had come up in their inebriated chat. I'm surprised these two didn't end up in ambulances for alcohol poisoning after drenching at the airport bar. Andre drew 2 prospective destinations on napkins for Dani to choose from. She chose the one that said Vegas. Actually, they both said Vegas, and Dre proposed that while in LV they could gamble, overeat, get hitched. I don't think Dani understood. However, she enjoyed the controversy of all the Fairmont Crest residents seeing their wedding images on social media. How much do you want to wager that these two wake up drunk and married? They will undoubtedly join the soap twosomes that marry for the wrong reasons while out in the 702. But are they really such a dreadful permanent couple? Despite Andre's adoration for Ashley, he has strong feelings for Dani, and Dani was eager to make their affair public at the Articulates event. Let me go get some rice to throw at these two once they've woken up. Friend or foe? After seeing Vanessa all over Joey like one of his cheap outfits, I knew Doug would want to restart his plot to take Joey down. Doug tabled it when Vanessa threatened to take away his allowance. Can I say something here? Doug's such a pussy dude. And Randy knew it. When Doug said he still loved Vanessa despite her sleeping around on him, Randy scoffed. I guess some guys can handle being cucks better than others. Tell it like it is, Randy. I believe that the show's purpose is to make Doug so weak. Dude tried to get Randy to settle his cuck statement in the alley, but Randy didn't even take the flex seriously. Because Doug lacks conviction. He talks a lot but does nothing. Except for going to Bill for help catching Joey for money laundering, and thus absolving Vanessa of all culpability. Doug should let Vanessa go for the repeated emasculation, even if the McBrides agreed to an open relationship. She's simply terrible to him. But Doug felt obligated to Vanessa to keep her name clear because of how he had brought her into Joey's orbit in the first place, and I'll grant him that. He took a stand there. Unfortunately, he did not follow through on his original plan to have Jacob investigate Joey for allegedly murdering his employees. Not that Doug didn't mention anything to Bill, it was just that Bill's radar went off when he did. Mr. Hamilton then abandoned his wife and their planned makeup sex, leaving Haley alone in their very pink living room. Bill used to be glued to Haley's side like crazy glue on his suits, but either he's lost interest in his still new bride, or he succumbed to the neglect he inflicted on Dani. Meanwhile, Vanessa was in Uptown with Joey, who delighted her by presenting her a large stack of cash. In fact, she pondered why she hadn't gotten into money laundering sooner and challenged Joey to tell her that she had become a pretty good criminal. Yeah, it appears Vanessa has passed the line, which is all the more reason Doug to divorce her and let the chips fall where they may as to whether or not she is arrested. Would the McBrides' grown-up children, Danielle and Deanna, who I expect to see soon, be okay with their mother being a mall? Joey didn't mind who she was, but he was puzzled as to why Vanessa still cared so much about Dougie. The realtor-turned-lawbreaker informed Joey that Doug was her first. They had known each other since high school, so she couldn't simply switch off all feelings for him. Joey wanted Vanessa to tell him she loved him, but she wouldn't, at least not until he grabbed her arm to halt her from leaving. Then she got the cowed, captive video face that says, to me, I'm being domestically abused. I guess she enjoys that though, because she revealed that in the end, I really am a one-man kind of girl. The man just isn't Doug, right? So Bill spotted Vanessa snuggling up to Joey and asked her to go so he and Armstrong could do some masculine things, but she refused. When she finally agreed to go, only after defiantly kissing Joey in front of Bill, the lawyer realized Joey had it bad for this lady. Joey tried to act as if his main concern was that Van was good in bed, but you don't deceive the fixer. Being duped by the fixer is another matter. Randy was correct in his assessment that Bill could not be trusted. Billy Goat ran right up to Joey and spilled every detail about Doug's desire for him to assist in bringing Joey down. Bill also claimed that Doug had pieced together some of the details concerning Kenneth's body being discovered in the park. Joey was unconcerned about it, but he did believe Doug could cause some damage by giving the cops Vanessa's accounting. Joey promised Bill that he would handle Doug, so Doug better hope Randy's plan to hire a confidential source to figure out which way the wind was blowing with his previous boss works. Because Dougie just revealed himself to Joey through Bill and will be wearing cement shoes in the Potomac if Randy doesn't intervene. See, Doug? You should have gone to Jacob as you originally intended. Vanessa did not need to know. Neither McBride needed to know about Bill. Obviously, because when they gathered for dinner at the club and bumped into Bill, it was plain that they had both had a meeting with the attorney, yet the marrieds instantly lied to each other about it. Get one of those banquet room forks and put it into these fellas. They're done. Do you still want to see this couple together? Dr. Knockboot. You would think Eva would have learned by now not to tell her mother anything, especially if it included Ted. But instead, Eva had to tell Leslie how she discovered Ted drunk in his hotel, pining for Nicole and still wounded from the first-class trolling she and her family had inflicted on him involving monetary bets. The clown saw the Jim Beam and upped it with wild turkey, forcing Eva to put him to bed, or rather, couch. Leslie couldn't wait to go to Ted's hotel, even though she'd had a great day so far. She had arrived at the Dupree house to inform Anita and Vernon that, surprise, she had managed to purchase the house across the street after all. She planned to demolish the current house and build something made of mahogany, as well as install a moat. All of the building was bound to produce a lot of noise, and the sparkling garden trolls would undoubtedly shine a bright light into the Dupree's living room. Except when Leslie indicated where they would be, she pointed to the opposite end of the room from the front door. That means the properties have shared backyards and are not across the street from one another. I'd call that a blocking error, but Nicole later suggested the same direction. What's going on? So, when Leslie saw Ted all drunk, she felt it was time to start seducing him. Did she really believe his, prowess would work with him in that situation? I suppose it must have, for despite Ted's complaints, he eventually gave in, and, according to Leslie, their boot-knocking was just as good as it had been back then. I'm going to skip the consent problem, but only because the show did. Later, Leslie informed her awakened lover that they had gotten back together, which surprised Ted, who immediately covered Leslie's nonstop lips when Eva knocked on the door. Leslie joked that if Ted was going to be tough with her, they should have a safe word, like Peaches. Does the nickname you gave the lady who raised you qualify as a safe word? Miss Thomas has some very strange kinks. Ted unsurprisingly told Leslie that he had only hit the sheets with her because she was present and he was drunk, making Leslie feel like a supporting character. She was depressed as hell, but what did she expect? With the wind out of her sails, Leslie agreed not to tell Eva about the ugly bump, but of course, she did, in a type of code that Eva had to figure out for herself. Eva was like, "You gross." She approached Ted, accusing her father of taking advantage of her mother and informing him that she had already told him what would happen if he gave Leslie any cause to be hopeful. And, while Leslie was hurt by Ted's rejection, she had previously modified the story so that Ted only said certain things because he was supposed to. Ted really wanted her. Nicole was telling Anita that her intellect urged her to keep as far away from Ted as possible, but her heart still loved him. As a result, she had concluded that she should give her marriage another chance. Anita explained to the shrink that she was probably just terrified of moving forward without Ted after so many years. Who in this family has a psychology degree? In any case, Anita was probably thinking about something else. She and Vernon had just pulled Leslie's country club membership, and Vern was on the phone with Bill about ripping her Fairmont Crest welcome mat from under her. Next on the agenda was a meeting with the Homeowners Association. Good move, even if Leslie always appears to be 10 steps ahead of everyone. When does she go to jail? Above the law doesn't look good right now. When Leslie received a "you rowdy here" visit from the country club president, she flipped it on his ass and offered to buy the place and name a sports wing after herself. How much money does Leslie have? Barbara's royalties couldn't reach the billions. Leslie, a founding member of the Articulates, gained more of her due after bragging to Anita and Nicole about her membership pivot and presenting Nikki with Ted's tie. Leslie approached Anita's table and practically begged her to tell her something, anything, about her new mother Barbara. "Go screw yourself," Anita replied, but Leslie's vulnerability struck such a chord that Anita abandoned her plan to remove her earrings and instead described how Barbara had been smart, scrappy, and fearless. That is why Barbara's suicide came as such a surprise. Leslie couldn't get enough of Anita's description of how Barbara had sewn their group matching costumes by hand, and by the end, Leslie was practically in tears, thanking Anita for everything, and Anita couldn't understand why she'd opened up to that skanky Leslie. Or why was she stirred by Leslie's reactions? Nicole was having her own thoughts about Ted possibly/probably sexing Leslie. The tie Leslie had spiked was a monogram number that Nicole had custom created for her boyfriend. Vanessa is terrible at her own marriage, but she gave Nicole sound advice that it was pointless to get into unknowns with her. Nicole needed to hear the whole story from Ted. Unfortunately for Nicole, that story was loaded with brown gunk and did not smell as pleasant as her favorite Febreze. Nicole threw the tie at Ted, who tried to play it cool, saying, "Well, Leslie must have snuck into my room to grab the tie." But he eventually realized he was starting to perform the lying that had already caused so much damage with Nicole, and forced himself to get serious. Yes. He had foolishly had intoxicated sex with Leslie. Nicole was not pleased. Ted couldn't understand why she was already divorcing him and having lunch with that brickhouse Carlton. Nicole admitted to caring about his sleeping habits because it provided her with something powerful that I can use against your ass in court. Who? Ted, like Doug, is done. Could Leslie's fantasy of Ted coming to her and tying her up all kinky-like come true sooner than she realizes? Unless she is finally in jail.